As Elliot Cadeau looks to continue growing his game as a sophomore, what can he learn from some of the best to ever do it at his position?
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Thursday, September 5th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shea, joined today by our good buddy, Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes, and the 2-decade veteran of Carolina Basketball School, Carolina's summer basketball camp. And you are joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We want to thank you for making us your first listen or watch, and send a special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, all the brand new Locked On Tar Heels insiders. Welcome in. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com right now to get started. Hard to believe NFL starts tonight, Coach. Crazy stuff. Man, it's good though. That means that basketball is uponst us. Nigh. It is nigh, Coach, I think is how you say that in the KJV version. Coming up on the show today, we've got a couple questions from the mailbag that we're going to open up and read. Interestingly, both of them involving Elliot Cadeau in some way. So really interested to get into those. We're going to take a quick look at a couple recruiting updates for you. And RJ Davis preseason awards, Coach, are already starting to roll in as expected, you know. Here's the other thing, my ladies and gentlemen who are joining us. In my hands, I hold this beautiful brand new book called Carolina Basketball School, History, Stories, and Drills. This is written by our own man, Coach Bill Robinson. Just came out a couple weeks ago, and you can get your very own copy. Sure, you can buy it off of Amazon, but if you want it signed, Coach would love to do that. You can actually buy it directly from him at wdrobinson@milligan.edu. I'm going to put all that in the show notes. So if you'd like a signed copy, Coach would be more than happy to do it and get it to your doorstep. So we'll let you know about it again. We'll have Coach talk about it at the end of the show. But man, Coach, I know I've said it a couple times now, but just so happy and thrilled for you to finally have this out in the world. Way to go.
Thanks. I'm just glad we don't have to talk about when it's going to come out. I'm just glad it's done.
That's right.
Taking a burden off my shoulders for sure.
That's right, man. It's been really cool to just get on social media and see people posting pictures of it or comments about how much they're enjoying it. And man, it's just, I'm so thrilled for you. Okay, Coach, here we go. Mailbag segment 1. Here's the first question. Our buddy RJ Sori sent in an email and said this: Allen Iverson is 6 feet tall and Isiah Thomas is 6'1", and both of them are in the Naismith Hall of Fame. They are both all-time talents, and I'm not saying that Elliot Cadeau is on that level. But what, if anything, could Elliot learn from studying how those two played basketball? And obviously, two of the best to ever do it in AI and Isiah brought the game a little bit different. But Coach, you know, a lot was made last year about the shortness of the RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau backcourt. And so I like this comparison. We often make comps to Carolina guards. So I like getting outside the family and looking at some Hall of Famers. Coach, I know you've had a little bit of time to think about this. What's your response to RJ's question?
Yeah, those two guys were all-time talents, not just all-time greats, but their talent level was so incredible. So when you talk about the height, the level of their talent is what was, to me, was more impressive. I didn't really care about their size. What can Elliot learn from those two guys? I think from Allen Iverson's perspective, how do you break down people off the dribble? There's nobody, the crossover, everybody knows about the crossover, but to be able to watch Allen Iverson, and he could read defenders. He was the ultimate one-on-one offensive player. He could create a shot anytime he wanted to. I don't feel like Elliot's there yet. I think he does a great job. He can maybe make an explosion, but when that first move gets stopped, what's the counter? And maybe a counter to the counter to be able to get past somebody. Allen Iverson was the king of that. And when he got hot, you didn't have to do anything but give him the ball and tell everybody else to get out of the way. very much like Doug Collins talked about Michael Jordan, but he had that ability to be able to create off the dribble, to score, to be able to make shots. Isiah is a little bit different in the fact that he maybe did a better job making his teammates better. And that's kind of what I'd like to see Elliot do even better than he did last year. How can he get everybody else involved, but then also take over when he gets hot? Isiah had he had ability where he could go a half without missing a shot, where he just gets so hot and literally he could carry a team offensively without ever having to make a pass. But he also understood when Vinny Johnson came in off the bench and was the microwave and got hot, he was going to get him the ball any way he possibly can. Elliott already does a good job with that. But I think, again, the offensive game has got to get to the point where we see Elliott have a half or maybe even just a 5-minute stretch where he just does. And that's where he's got to get to right now.
What's interesting, I want to go back to the AI side of things. And I really enjoyed your conversation there about the counter to the counter. Because as you said, Elliott is explosive. He's a really high-level athlete. But, in some ways, I don't know that we often think about this with guards. For example, we often think about post players having a secondary move or a counter to the counter, right? Like if you typically turn baseline and the defender shuts that off, what are you going to next? How do you keep moving? And it's interesting for us to put our brains in that mindset of like, okay, so how is a guard capable to do that? Yeah, it's the crossover, but then it's the step back or the hezi or whatever it is in combination with that. Coach, how much of that is innate talent? How much of that is just working that ball handling to death to where you just got it on an absolute string and know where you're going?
Yeah, the big thing for me, to be a great one-on-one player, you have to be able to make jump shots. Because if you can't make a jump shot, I don't have to have a hand up. I just play the drive. And that's what they're doing to him right now. So that's the first step. The second step is then when you do have that one go-to move, whatever it is, if you get stopped, how can you react? We don't want to get stopped and then have to pull it back out and make a pass. What Iverson would do is if he made his crossover and somebody stopped him, he had another cross or behind the back, or like you're talking about, a hesitation move where he could still get to the rim even if he was stopped once. Good defenders can stop you once. Great defender might be even get you stop you twice. Iverson had the way to even get to that third move if he need to be able to get by somebody. Very few people are going to get to stop that third one. And I think, again, 1 year watching Elliott, if he got stopped on his initial move, it was a pass and move and, let's get the offense
Reset.
going.
Yeah.
But to be able to see him get stopped, be able to go behind the back, between the legs, get a step back, something else added to his moves, his repertoire. And again, it all starts with that jump shot. He's got to be able to consistently make that, make people get out there. So then a ball fake does create some off balance for a defender. But right now, if he does a ball fake, most guys are going to stay down, just keep a hand up, but they're still playing the drive. He's got to be able to make that jumper.
Let's go back to the Isiah side of it now. It's funny also that we're talking about, you mentioned MJ and then we're talking about Isiah. It's funny to mention those two rivals, we'll call them, in the same conversation. That makes me want to go back and watch First Dance because that was a fun section of that whole thing. But Coach, you talked about how good Isiah was at making everyone around him better, right? Like I think today the name that we all think of right now isn't even really in men's basketball. It's women's, and Caitlin Clark, and how she just elevates every single teammate around her. Coach, you said that you thought Elliott did a good job of that, but you would like to see him continue to grow in that. In your opinion, what are some of the things he could do to continue his growth and his acceleration as an equipper or as a facilitator for the rest of his team?
Yeah, one of the greatest attributes I think Isiah Thomas has, he just hated to lose. He was super competitive. It didn't matter. College, obviously. I think if you played him in pool, he just, again, those greats always, they hate to lose more than they like to win. John McEnroe talked about that. He didn't even enjoy winning. He just hated to lose so much. He didn't want to lose. But
that's
Isiah
a miserable existence, by the way.
Yes, he is miserable. But I think Isiah, again, he wanted to make the team great because he just wanted to win so badly. And I've watched enough of Elliott, even in pickup. He hates to lose in pickup. And I really like to see that. I like to see how his competitive nature. As a freshman, before you even played your first game, he didn't say much. This summer, he was much more vocal. And when he got fouled, he made sure everybody knew it. And it was different than it was the year before, which it should be. And I think it'll even increase even more throughout this year. But the competitiveness is the first step, I think, that I really like to see him continue to grow, because I think it's going in the right direction.
And part of it for me too is something else you said that I want to go back to, just about knowing when to call his own number and when it's like, for example, Ian Jackson strikes me as the player who is going to just be just crazy in fuego for 3-4 minutes. And then there'll be other games where he'll be like 0 for 8 from the floor. It's like when Ian's on one of those heaters, just find him over. Like RJ did that this summer in one of the camp games I remember watching. And it's like that Elliot will need to continue to do over and over and over again. Well, Coach, we've just talked about all these things for Elliot Cadeau to learn. And we have another mailbag question that makes a comparison between whether it's more important for him to continue to grow in his offensive skill set, or for J-Wash's efficiency to level up even more than it already has. We're going to each make an argument for one side of that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. You've heard me talk a lot this summer about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And usually I've been filling you in on a boost or a bonus that you could get daily all summer long from FanDuel. But today, I got something a little bit different for you, because right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. And y'all, I'm telling you, you got to get on this right now, because NFL goes live this weekend. I mean, there's a game tonight, for crying out loud. Well, also on FanDuel, obviously, you can get in on some action. Carolina this weekend hosting Charlotte, and the line has moved since yesterday when we talked. Yesterday, Carolina was favored over Charlotte by 21.5. Now it's up to 22.5, but the over-under actually went down from 47.5 to 46.5. So if you want to hit on that or anything else, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Another mailbag question coming out for us here, Coach. Our good friend Jay Washnerd from the Discord says this: what is more important to this year's team? Elliot Cadeau having a vastly improved jumper and becoming more of a scoring threat, or Jalen Washington's consistency and efficiency translating as more minutes and opportunity come? Coach, let me just put some more understanding to that for folks. Jalen Washington was crazy efficient last year, whether it was percentages or, whatever advanced metric you want to get into. And the question essentially is, as his minutes certainly go up this year, will he be able to maintain that efficiency? That's what we're asking here. Coach, which one of these you want to take? And then I'll argue the other side of it. And then we will let this rubber band decide who wins. No, let's each argue a point.
For me, it's J-Wash. And the reason I say that is because Coach Williams thinks it's the post position that's most important right now to our success as a team for North Carolina. So that's easy for me. To me, it's just we got to get some productivity. We've got to get some numbers out of that position, and he's got to be the guy to do it. So I expect him to have a huge year. I think he's going to get a lot more minutes. I think he's ready. I think he's physically healthy from everything that I've seen and heard. I think that's been what's kind of hampered in the first couple years here, just not being healthy. But I think he's got to be the key. He's got to have that big year. I'm not saying it's going to be an all ACC year, but I think if the numbers, if he's averaging 12 and 8, something like that, I think Carolina's got a legit chance of making another run to the Final Four.
I love that number you just gave, Coach, 12 and 8, because this year is about getting the elite backcourt everything they need to do, and the front court just holding their own a little bit. It's like Carolina football. The defense just can't give up 50, and we're in good shape in the Drake May era. Coach, I like that argument, but I'm going to go on the Elliot Cadeau side. And part of it for me is specifically Jay Wash Nerd said, is it about Elliot having a vastly improved jumper and becoming more of a scoring threat? I think part of if I can go back to Carolina's last game, part of the reason Carolina lost that game is because your point guard is not on the floor down the stretch, because Alabama didn't respect his jumper, backed off of him. And so Coach Davis has him on the bench in favor he and Seth Trimble on the bench, and Paxton Wojcik is in there. And all due respect to our guy Paxton, whom we love a lot, but we needed Elliot Cadeau in that basketball game down the stretch. And I know we can second guess Coach Davis's decision to have him on the bench there, but the fact that you even have to have that conversation is directly tied to the lack of ability from outside and Alabama's need to not respect that. We saw that in what I think it was the first Duke game where they were backing off of Elliot, and he and RJ were able to work some magic with Elliot doing that on the fly. But to me, Elliot being able to do that opens up even more space for Jalen Washington and the rest of the offense. And so for me, I would argue that it's more important for Elliot's offense to take that next step so that it makes his facilitating and other things all the more impactful. Coach, what do you think about that?
No, I think you're right. I think they're both hugely important. I think we all expect RJ to be consistent and do his stuff. We expect the freshman to come in and have an impact, but Elliot's got to be able to make shots so he does stay on the floor. He's got to be able to make free throws so that he can get fouled late in the game. But J-Wash being able to be productive just takes them to that next level. I think it takes them from maybe a top 10, top 12 team. And I think that makes them a top 3, top 4 team with a chance to really make a special run late in the year. But I think it's the combination of both. There's so much more depth at the guard position that if
it's a great point.
If Elliot did struggle, there's somebody who can step up. There's other guys ready to go. We're just unsure about the post guys right now. And it could be Claude may step up and Lubin may step up. We're just trying to figure out exactly who that next guy is going to be.
That's a great point about the depth because, if Elliot's having an off day, I don't know, you just slot in the reigning ACC player of the year to run the show and things will be okay there. That's not too bad an option. But Coach, I really like your point there that, well, obviously for the sake of the question, we're each arguing a side of it. But at the end of the day, these two things are tied together at the hip, and it's your bookends, your 1 and your 5, and they've got to really work capably well together. I expect us to be able to utilize a good deal of pick and roll and all sorts of stuff with that to get these two guys involved together, utilize Jay Wash's shooting. That's something I'm interested to see, him as a role man, but sometimes just staying out and knocking it down, depending on what the defense gives. Coach, before we move on away from this question, a couple quick recruiting updates. Folks, you might have seen this, but 2025 center Eric Reiba from Germany, that is in high school in Potomac, Maryland, who we just talked about on the show a couple of days ago, has canceled actually his Carolina visit along with his Kentucky visit. So that's out. And obviously Carolina already lost out on the other big center in 25. That's Malachi Moreno. So back to the board yet again with the center position. So we'll keep our eyes out for that. The other thing is, in that same show with Eric Reiba, I talked about this entire month of September is critical with all these official visits coming up. Derek Dixon's starts this weekend, and he will be in town. And he told Zag's blog, Adam Zagoria, that he is planning on probably announcing on September 27th. So that's about 3 weeks from right now. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. Jasper Johnson's announcement is today. It's this afternoon. The expectation right now is Kentucky, but you just never know. I woke up the day Ian Jackson was committing thinking Kentucky, and in about 8.5 weeks, he's suiting up for the Tar Heels. So there's that. Coach, I know we're not really planning talking recruiting today, but any response to any of that? How do you handle the disappointment of thinking you have somebody coming on a visit, but they're not? Let's say Jasper Johnson does commit to Kentucky. How do you handle, and I'm not even asking as a fan, I'm asking you as a coach, how do you handle that disappointment and then just back to the drawing board?
Well, I think it's changed. It's different than it was 10 years ago, because 10 years ago it was, all right, fine, next guy up. We don't care. Just, we'll forget about that guy. Now it's, hey man, we understand, but if you're not happy after a year, it's real easy to get back into that portal. And, we'd love to continue to talk to you if they do everything the right way. We had one this year, kid that we loved, and we kind of got into it a little late. He was already, kind of leaning one way. We did get him on campus. We got great relationship, great kid. And he went with the school that had been recruiting him all year. But when he left, we said, hey, we love you to death. We'll keep our eyes on you. We're not going to talk to you, nothing like that. But we're going to see how your year goes. And hey, we're always here, willing to talk if it gets, we're just not happy wherever you went. So it does change a little bit. My assistants remember everybody who we came in second with. I don't remember anybody. It's one of those things where I don't want to waste my time thinking about the guys who are lost. We're just going to move forward, pressing on, forgetting what's behind and pressing on towards the mark in front of us. It's that
I've read that
simple.
somewhere. Where have I read that?
It does sound familiar, doesn't it?
Very much so. Yeah, like, hey, don't delete my contact out your phone there, buddy, because we might talk again someday. I like that, Coach. Thank you for all that insight and that reminder of the importance of not burning any bridges, especially in this day and age. All right, folks. RJ Davis got his first preseason award from a national publication. Is it the beginning of another magical year for the reigning ACC Player of the Year? We're going to talk about that in just a second. Right after I tell you about LinkedIn. Hey, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for that role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. What's cool is that LinkedIn isn't just like some other job board. They help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else. Even folks that aren't really actively searching for a job, but they might just be open to that perfect role if you give them a call. So in a given month, by the way, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, by the way, knows that the over 2.5 million small businesses who use their services are wearing a ton of hats and really might not have the time or resources to hire. And the cool thing is that they're constantly finding ways to make this process easier for you and your business. For example, they just recently launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, which again makes this process even more efficient for you. So post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Check it out. Again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The annual Blue Ribbon Yearbook is just about to come out for college basketball. It is off at printers right now. I have ordered my digital copy, so I'm actually going to get it. It's supposed to be in my inbox in like the next week or so. If you order the print version, it's like the end of the month, so get ahead on that. But they've started rolling out a few of the things from this year's yearbook, including the Blue Ribbon All-American teams. And Coach, there are 4 of them. I kind of love this, but it gets a little bit deep. Not so shockingly with the first team in alphabetical order. RJ Davis from the University of North Carolina. You might have heard of him. Also on first team, Hunter Dickinson from Kansas, Alex Caravan, reigning 2-time national champion from UConn, Mark Sears from Alabama, and RJ's former backcourt mate, Mr. Caleb Love, the reigning and final, by the way, Pac-12 Player of the Year. Second team, Janai Broom from Auburn. I had big hope this offseason that we were going to get him in the transfer portal, but he opted to stay. Cooper Flagg, the freshman at Duke. I think that's interesting because a lot of people will say he should be on the first team. Purdue point guard Braden Smith, Texas A&M point guard Wade Taylor IV, and Tennessee point guard Zakai Ziegler. Third team, Robbie Avila, Mr. Rex Specs himself, who transferred from Indiana State to St. Louis with his coach Josh Schertz, who took that job. Graham Ike, Gonzaga's center. Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton, another player I had heard rumblings of that might enter the transfer portal, and I was very hopeful on him. That would have been a big one. Tamin Lipsey at Iowa State, and Juwan Roberts from Houston. And on the fourth team, Umar Ballo, Caleb Love's former teammate at Arizona, who's now at Indiana this year. LJ Cryer from Houston, the former Baylor player that's now at Houston. Yaxel Lendenborg from UAB. That's a cool entrance on this list. Great Osibor at Washington. He went with his head coach, Danny Sprinkle, from Utah State up to Washington. $10 price tag on that one. And then wrapping up these 4 teams, Hunter Salas, who pulled out of the draft and came back to Wake Forest, which is great for college basketball. I love that we get him back in the ACC And man, hopefully that'll be a good thing for Coach Steve Forbes, who, oh, by the way, used to be the head coach at ETSU right there in Coach Rob's back door in Johnson City, Tennessee. So, Coach, lots of familiar names on this list. But I want to talk, obviously, this is a North Carolina show, about the RJ Davis side of this. Last year at this time, my friend, RJ Davis not only was not on any of these teams, he didn't even make the preseason All-ACC team. You think it's going to happen that way this year again?
It's a lot different going from being the hunter to the hunted. And I think there was a lot of motivation with RJ. I think he did feel slighted, and I think he just was out to prove to the world that, hey, he was the guy, and he proved to everybody. It's different now that he's an All-American, and everybody who's guarding him is saying, I'm guarding an All-American tonight. My job is to shut him down, not just another guard. So that's, to me, is a big motivational thing, not from maybe RJ's perspective, but now from the defender side, everybody's going to want to try to stop. Not that they weren't last year, but it gives them even more motivation now. He was All-American last year and now named first-team All-American. It's going to be a little bit more different, just more motivation for those defenders to really put a stop on him.
And, obviously, North Carolina is going to, I think we all have hope that it's like, man, maybe RJ won't have to do as much this year, and I'm hopeful for that. But, Coach, something just tells me it's just going to be another year of RJ going a little bit bonkers despite all that extra attention. And it could very well go down as another one of the single greatest seasons in Carolina history, like last year did. But how much more difficult is it when last year he's being slept on completely? It's the Caleb and RJ divorce. Caleb's off to Arizona. We'll see if RJ can do it on his own, was what a lot of people were saying. You and I knew the truth, right? But just how much more difficult is it now that target that you mentioned is on his back to replicate what happened last season?
As a coaching, I'm thinking about now, what do we change to be able to get the ball in his hands in different spots? Give different looks. Give him more opportunities, maybe off screens, instead of trying to fight through ball screens all the time. If he's in a ball screen right now, I'm double teaming him if I'm the other team. So I'm just not going to let him do the little things that they've been able to do. So those are the counters that whoever's running the offense for Carolina, they got to figure out how to change up things, and maybe something they change up weekly or bi-weekly, every
I like that.
whatever, trying to be able to have different looks so that people can't just get comfortable with what they're running. So that, to me, if he's the guy, we're going to keep running stuff for him, and we're going to change things up to make it as unpredictable as we can.
That way, whatever you've seen on tape, you can't just rely on that from your scouting report. I love that, Coach. Let's mix that bad boy up. It's so funny that Caleb Love is on this list as well. I love that these guys just keep running these parallel college basketball lives. Coach, I don't know how much of a chance you've had to see Cooper Flagg play. Obviously, he's, this dynamic freshman coming in, similar to Elliot last year, supposed to be a high school senior. I think a lot of people expect to see him on most first-team preseason All-American lists. It makes me remember back to when Harrison Barnes was one of the first ever freshmen to be on a preseason All-American list. And it was a little bit too early, right? Like his sophomore year, yes, absolutely should have been. But, Coach, I mean, how legitimate is it to have Cooper Flagg? And again, I don't know how much you've seen of his game, but to have him second or first team preseason.
I've seen enough to know he's a real deal. He can do it all. And you don't want to put somebody up there again. It's a lot of pressure just being second team. But who would you take off that first team right now to put him up there? Those other guys have been there, done that, and they've shown that they can do it at that level. So I'm not really surprised he's not on that first team, but he's obviously very, very talented. I hope he's one and done, and we can go see him in the NBA. So we only have to play him 3 times. So that's more of what I'm hoping right now. But yeah, he's ultimately, he's going to be a top pick in the NBA draft. He's uber talented, and we're hoping that he, stays healthy, has a great year, and we can beat him a couple times on the way down the road, and then he can just go on to the NBA as quickly as possible.
Yeah, man, we want to always beat the pants off of Duke. But like injury, man, I'm right with you. That's just something I am never going to root for or cheer for. Like I wanted Zion playing in those games so that Carolina could beat the Zion. But still, that shoe, man, that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. All right, Coach, we're going to get out of here. But would you, for the good people, one more time, pitch your book and talk about what folks can be on the lookout for with that?
Yeah, it's been an awesome experience right now. I've got a great response from coaches. And I actually got a call from my niece this morning, who's not an athlete at all, talking about how much she enjoyed the book and she could hear my words as she read it. But wdrobinson@milligan.edu is my email address. I would love, if you want to have me sign it, would love to do that. I sent out a bunch of books this week, including to Laura Montross and even to the Library of Congress. So the book will be in the Library of Congress. But it's just been it's been a neat experience to get a lot of feedback, even from Brad Frederick today. I was trying to figure out a time to go down and visit the team and get a chance to watch them practice. And I said, hey man, I'm going to bring you a book. He's already got mine. And I thought, oh, how cool is that? One of the coaches at Carolina has already bought the book. So
wow.
I did not expect that. But again, it's a labor of love. It's something I really poured my heart into. And I want people to remember some of those old coaches. I want them to appreciate some of the cool stories, but I also want them to realize Carolina is different. It really is a family. Campus extension, Montross campus extension. But it's a really just for a regular guy, just a regular coach, to be able to go there and be involved in that and feel like part of one of the greatest, if not the greatest, basketball program in the country. It's been a pretty cool thing.
And I love, and you just even talked about it, from your non-athlete niece to one of the assistant coaches for the Tar Heels and everyone between. This book has something for everyone because of the humanity in it, but because of the drills in it and the stories. So I love that, like, it can hit people across all sorts of different walks of life, Coach. That's just really neat and not something that you often see happening in life. What a cool moment to be able to text with Brad about that, the Library of Congress thing, all of it, man. So great, Coach. Congrats on all of that. It's funny. I saw actually a picture of Coach Frederick down visiting Braylon Mullins in Indiana at his school earlier on Wednesday. I don't know if he was there on Wednesday, but the picture was out on Wednesday. So these guys are all over the place right now. All right, gang. On tomorrow's show, Denora Searcy and I will be together previewing Carolina's game ahead of Charlotte this weekend. Make sure you tune in for that. If you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you do so that you get every single episode and don't miss a second. Also, make sure you've hit that bell notification on YouTube so that when we go live after the game against Charlotte on Saturday, which will be a little bit delayed, it'll be a little bit later on Saturday, you can tap right into that. If you're not part of our Locked On Tar Heels Discord, man, we'd love to have you. Come for the Tar Heels, stay for the community. The link for that is in the show notes, and it's absolutely free to join. Would also invite you to join our brand new Locked On Tar Heels Insiders program, where you can text directly one-on-one with me, have access to all of my stats and files and all that great stuff. Free for 14 days for anybody, and it's just $5 a month after that. All right, gang, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.